So here we are in Nazareth at a recreation of a first century synagogue. So this would have been the approximate size and style of a synagogue that Jesus would have attended as a young man and throughout his life. And you probably know the famous passage in Luke 4 where Jesus quotes from the prophet Isaiah, mostly from the first few verses of chapter 61. It's kind of his mission statement. I like to call it the purpose statement or the mission statement of Jesus. And so he was in the temple, maybe 30 years old, and he was handed the scroll of Isaiah, and then he read these words from, remember, you have to remember they didn't have this book then, they didn't have what we now call the New Testament, and they wouldn't have even had the whole Old Testament all as one book. I mean, there were the books of Moses, the Torah, there were the prophets, there were the history books, but they would have been separate. They would have been scrolls, maybe similar to this scroll, like this. So he would have been handed that scroll, and it just so happened that today's reading, by the way, today actually in real time is Shabbat, is Saturday, is the Sabbath day. It would have just happened that the scroll that was handed to him was Isaiah. The reading for the day was Isaiah 61. And you know I'm sure you know the passage. Jesus said, and of course he's pointing to himself. I don't know if he was actually doing this, maybe not. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. What's interesting, I mean, this place would have been hustling and bustling with people coming in and out, maybe completely full on a Saturday, most likely full. And I'm sure they were kind of discussing it. It's not like in modern day churches where the preacher is the only one talking. Everybody kind of talks. Even until now, in Middle Eastern culture, it's very talkative, very gregarious. And so maybe people are talking over them. They're discussing what does he mean by that? Because he goes on to say, today that passage is fulfilled in your hearing. So you would think that maybe they'd be shocked, but they seem to respond positively. Remember, the Jews have been waiting for the Messiah for a long time. And it's pretty clear he's saying, I'm here. And so their immediate response, I think surprisingly really, was positive. And they all spoke well of him. They thought he spoke very well. They loved how he read the scriptures. And they were probably discussing at that point, is this the Messiah? Is this the man we waited for over 1,000 years? What's interesting is Jesus, he always knows people's hearts. So my guess, this is my interpretation, is he knows that what they think, what they're hearing, is I've come to help you. I've come to release you from those bad people. I've come to set you free. I've come to give you grace. I've come to give you blessing. And really what Jesus was saying is I've come to bless all the world. Now, through them, but all the world. It's the same problem we still have today, Christians or Jews, whatever. We like to claim all the good stuff for ourselves, but we forget everybody else. So it's interesting. He goes on to use two examples of what would be modern day Arabs. A Lebanese woman. He says, were there no widows in the time of Elijah? Why did Elijah have to go to Zarephath, which is in modern day Lebanon? It would be in Phoenicia at the time. Actually, Zarephath is a town between Sidon and Tyre called Zarephath in Lebanon. We've been there many times. And so he says, were there no widows here? Why couldn't Elijah have healed or rescued a widow here? But he went to Zarephath in Lebanon and made food expand to feed her family. And then he says, were there no lepers in Israel in the time of Elisha? Why did he have to go and heal Naaman, the Syrian? So a Syrian. So he uses as examples of God's grace, a Phoenician or a modern day Lebanese widow and a Syrian. It's obviously not because he didn't care for the people that were local, but he was trying to get a message through that this freedom, this release of the oppression was not just for the Jews. It's not just for these people. It's through these people to the nations. Unfortunately, then, as many of us now, they didn't understand, and they actually tried to kill him. So in the space of, it seemed like a few minutes, they went from loving him, thinking, man, this is the Messiah. You know, he's come to rescue us. And then Jesus knows their hearts, and he explains, actually, it's not just for you, it's also for Syrians and Lebanese, using modern day examples. And I think that's the challenge for us now as we're standing here today in Nazareth, in Israel, thinking of God's grace for us, maybe as Americans, as Christians, whoever the us is. If you're part of us, you think God's for you, that's actually only partially correct. He's for you to go through you, to be a blessing to all the peoples of the earth, even the ones that you're most likely to be against, politically against, enemies of your state, enemies personally, people you don't get along with, that's who God pours His grace out on. I think that's a great message.